So this week I wrote about a bunch of different fabrics. I wrote about wool, I wrote about bamboo, I wrote about organic cotton, and I wrote about hemp. I was going to write about the rest of the eco fabrics as well, but it's Fashion Revolution Week coming up in a few weeks, and I felt like a full month of eco fashion might be a little bit much. So I'm going to break it up a little bit with some eco beauty coming up in the next week, and then we'll come back to eco and ethical fashion for Fashion Revolution Week in about 2 weeks' time. That is also Smart Fashion Week here in Paris, so I will be doing a few posts on that as well. What I wanted to do with this post is basically just do a roundup post with each one of the Gone Green 2016 themes, I think I'm calling them, are, I try to do a roundup post just to kind of like collate all the different subjects and give sort of a Coles Notes version. And with this one as well, because, with each one of these blog posts that I'm writing, I'm learning myself. So it's a new discovery for me as well. And so I wanted to kind of like highlight which fabric I feel is the most eco-friendly, and also sort of compare the fabrics with fast fashion and slow fashion, so you can kind of get a bit of a perspective on who's the worst guy and who's the best guy. So the first fabric I wrote about this week was organic cotton. I've written before also on organic cotton because obviously it's used for things outside of fashion, including our sheets and tea towels and stuff like that. I'm wearing a shirt that's done by a company called Positive Luxury, and they kind of exemplify, or no, they're not called Positive Luxury, shit. They're called Earth Positive, sorry. And they kind of exemplify the way that a slow fashion company should run in terms of the way that they produce their fabric, or grow their fabric, produce their products, and ship their products as well. So basically, like with conventional cotton, just one t-shirt, so about the size of this, like a 200-gram t-shirt, it takes 7.5 bathtubs of water just to grow the thing. And a lot of the times the product is being grown in places like India, where it's not necessarily native to the space that it's being grown. So instead of using monsoon rains, which is what this Earth Positive t-shirt does, in the growth of their organic cotton, they use the fresh water from the local communities. So what it does is kind of drain the resources of the local community. So even though it's organic cotton, it's not necessarily ethical cotton at the same time. And this is where it kind of gets a little bit confusing for all the fabrics, because there's so many different levels of production when it comes to fashion, and it can get a little icky at each level. So just for the growth of the cotton, it's 7.5 bathtubs of water, and it's approximately, let me just double check, I've got my blog post here. It is, I think they compared it to 1.5 bags of flour that's used as a pesticide for each 200-gram piece of cotton that is used to make about a t-shirt. And that's with like regular fashion. So those pesticides get into the fresh water that's being used to water the cotton for it to grow. And that usually ends up back in the community's fresh water, meaning that the people from the community who need that fresh water for drinking and cooking and living life end up having pesticide-filled fresh water, which is not ideal and kind of takes away from the eco-friendliness or friendliness at all of having a natural product which can return to the earth. So even non-organic cotton can return to the earth and biodegrade, but non-organic cotton is full of chemicals from the get-go. So then once it reaches the manufacturing level, another, I think it's 5,000 liters of water is produced. I think they were comparing it to like, I don't know, 20,000 cups of tea or something like that, just to give you some perspective. And that's for washing and dyeing and not sewing the teas, but for the manufacturing side of things. On top of that, there's also like a huge energy strain, which comes from just the fact that the factory runs off of energy. Earth Positive, however, they use renewable energy sources for their factories, so they're sort of neutral when it comes to energy use for their clothing production. I'm using Earth Positive as an example because it's the best one that I know of that uses full organic cotton. There's another one called Salvage Tea that uses salvaged pieces of t-shirts and other fabrics to make their shirts as well. But Earth Positive is the only one that I know of that has a very, very clear and transparent sort of step-by-step process. It really helps you understand the ideal process of creating organic cotton clothing or homewares and stuff like that. So then once the product is made and sewn, hopefully sewn by someone who's being paid a fair wage, it's then shipped, and normally especially for fast fashion, you're shipping by air because it's fast and you need it fast. But Earth Positive ships by freight, by on the boats. Sorry, I'm really struggling with my words today. And so it takes a little longer, but they wait until they have like a full carton to send, and then they send it. So sometimes you might be waiting a little bit longer if you are one of their stockists, for example. This shirt was screen printed on by a company in Germany called the Green T-Shirt Company, and they use salvage tees, which I mentioned before, and Earth Positive tees, as well as a few other brands that I know a little bit less about. And they have given Shane and I, which you'll see in the blog post associated with this video, each a t-shirt to talk about organic cotton and eventually about their brand. So that's kind of organic cotton. It doesn't really sum it up completely, but if you click below, there's a blog post which I'll put there, which has a whole post with all the information you kind of need to know about organic cotton. And then there's also the sum up post as well, if you just kind of want to see that information in a more concise manner. The second product I wrote about this week, I think fabric was bamboo. And bamboo is one of those kind of tricky fabrics as well because basically like bamboo I think grows 24 inches in 24 hours. So it's super, super fast growing. It also doesn't require very much water at all to grow. It can grow sort of in its own natural environment. It's very easy to sustainably harvest bamboo as well, which is great. The only downside is when you're trying to turn it into fabric, basically what they do is mix it with a chemical that kind of like combines the mulch and makes it into fabric, and it's super, super soft. It's kind of like a rayon, and they call it bamboo viscose. It dyes really well. It feels really nice to wear, and it is an eco-friendly product in terms of the production of the actual fibers. But once it gets turned into fabric, it's no longer eco-friendly because it's been mixed with chemicals. Now, in regular fast fashion, like the stuff you find at H&M, even in their conscious collection, they are mixing their organic cotton with chemical dyes. So it's kind of the same thing as fast fashion. Even things like nylon or rayon or any of the manufactured fabrics that we use in our clothing production today, it is way, way worse than bamboo fabric. But in terms of an eco-friendly alternative, it's, I guess, one of the worst kind of the natural fiber fabrics that are in production because of this fact that it has to be mixed with chemicals in order to be made into fabric. When you buy a bamboo bowl or you buy bamboo furniture or anything that's kind of in a more wood form, then you don't have to worry as much about the chemicals that are used. You just need to worry about the ethicalness of the production of that product. So that's kind of sums up bamboo. It also grows, it grows super quickly, which I mentioned before, but it doesn't need any pesticides. I have my computer here just to kind of like make sure I don't forget everything. So then I also talked about hemp, and hemp is kind of the hero of the eco-fabric industry. It takes about half the amount of space, like farm space, land I think is the word, to grow hemp. So you can kind of get twice the amount of hemp in the same space that you would have cotton, which is an important fact. It also doesn't need as much water. It takes about 50% less water than organic cotton. So if organic cotton has 7.5 baths of water just to produce one t-shirt, a t-shirt like this made of hemp, or like this one, which is made of hemp and organic cotton, would take half that amount. This is from a company called Super Ego, and they make theirs with 60% hemp and 40% cotton. They're super soft. They sent over a couple shirts for Shane and I, which you'll see in the blog post that I put up on hemp, which will also be linked in below. Hemp also has like a huge amount of uses. There's basically like 25,000 uses that you can use the hemp plant for. It has sort of a bad reputation because of, the whole hippie culture and whatever, but that it actually isn't really associated. It's a cousin of cannabis, but it isn't cannabis. It can grow without much water, and also it doesn't really care what kind of soil it's in, so it can grow almost anywhere, in almost any weather condition, which is really important, especially as our planet warms up and our farmlands are going to be reduced significantly. So it also doesn't need pesticides, and it grows about twice as fast as cotton. It grows in 4 months, whereas cotton takes almost a year from start to finish to harvest a crop. So in terms of being able to provide fabric and product to companies to cover our fast fashion needs, if fast fashion switched to hemp, there would be far less of an impact from fashion on the planet, which would be a great thing. Just going to check if I missed anything. Yeah, it's got, it's also 10 times stronger than cotton, which is an important thing when it comes to slow fashion, because you're basically trying to make things that are going to last a long time. And if it's 10 times stronger, it means it won't sort of break down as fast. And that doesn't mean break down as fast in the landfill, if that's where it ends up, because it is biodegradable. It just means that it will last longer as whatever it is that it's been sewn into for you, which means you won't need to buy as much stuff, and which means you'll slow down the fashion industry, which is what bloggers like me and designers and the industry as a whole are trying to kind of convince people to do, is just to buy less, buy better, and buy products that are made ethically and ecologically. I also talked a little bit about wool, and I'm not going to include it in the sort of competition between the three fabrics. I'm going to keep it separately. Wool is a natural product which doesn't require much water or take a huge amount of resources from the planet. There is, of course, the methane issue, which all sort of animal byproducts for bovine animals and sheep included produce methane, which is causing global warming. You can watch a documentary called Cowspiracy. I will link it in below as well, which talks more about that and goes into more depth about our relationship with animals and global warming. And the main issue that is kind of come to head with wool is that there is a huge amount of animal abuses, and if you click through to the blog post that I did on wool below, are links to 2 videos that PETA did when they went into one sort of animal shearing factory in Australia, and another one in, I believe it was Peru. In one of them you see the shearers just like basically beating the shit out of sheep that they're shearing, because sheep don't like to be held down, and so they're freaking out. And these guys are just like punching them, hitting them with the shears. One of them broke the sheep's neck. And in the other video, which was filmed in South America, they skin a lamb alive in order to get the wool from them. So like, these are companies that are luxury fashion brands, and also your fast fashion brands like J. Crew, Ralph Lauren, H&M, any of the brands that you're going to find in a mall that's selling online that has no sort of public explanation as to where they get their products from. Even Patagonia and Stella McCartney. Patagonia is probably one of the headiest eco brands that I know of. And they were sourcing, both Stella McCartney and Patagonia were sourcing from a company that ended up being exposed by PETA for huge. This is where they skinned the lamb alive, which is really awful to watch or even sort of hear about. And then the other problem with wool is even if it's come from a reliable source, so you basically need to know from the brand which farm exactly, because if there's a middleman in between, then there's sort of no way to control the quality or the animal safety in terms of where your wool comes from. And then with all of these products, basically, like whether you have hemp, which is one of the greenest fabrics that you can make, or organic cotton, or bamboo, viscose, or wool, if you're using those fabrics or if you're coloring those fabrics with chemical dyes, then you've completely sort of mitigated the eco-friendliness of that product. And this is something that becomes kind of a bit of an issue for me as a blogger or any of the other ethical or eco writers that are working right now. There are a lot of companies that are doing really great things, but they're just sort of missing a step. So whether it's where they get their product made, or the fact that they use chemical dyes, or the fact that they're sourcing their organic cotton from a farm that doesn't have monsoon rains watering their crops, and so on and so forth, there's a huge sort of disconnect between even the brands that are trying their best in the circular story, which is like the cradle to cradle story of how the product comes to creation and how it returns back to the earth. And if anywhere in that circular story chemicals are being used, or humans are being abused, or animals are being abused, it's missing the point of the movement, which is that you want to kind of live a more conscious lifestyle, and part of that is wearing clothing that doesn't have any negative side effects to it, so to speak. So this is a very kind of like wordy and fact-ridden post, but yeah, I just wanted to make clear that it's sort of a gray area when it comes to fabric, and thus the whole industry is kind of a gray area. So it's really important to start to understand the circular story behind everything, which is what I mainly write about in this 365 days of going green that I'm doing. If you have any questions, you can comment below. This one was a bit of a ramble. I'm going to post another one on nail polish in a couple days, which is a little bit less rambly, but still full of tons of information. If there's any subjects that you'd like me to cover, you can comment below as well, down there. And yeah, if you like it, like it. If you don't like it, don't like it. And if you want to read more information, you can click on any of the links to the specific subjects that I talked about today in the description below. So yes, I'm wishing you a beautiful day, and I will see you soon. Bye.